Hi, I'm Somer Hackley,
And I am Zen Mac, and this is the Art of Search Hiring Manager series.
and these are stories and insights about all things hiring. Well, Zen,
Well,
so good to see you. Yes, hello.
hello. I am thrilled today because we have our guest with us, Andrea Constantinides. She's the global head of talent acquisition at Shift Technology. I mean, I've met her many years ago. She's a powerhouse of knowledge, really all things recruiting, and is instrumental to some of the large growth organizations from Fortune 500 to highest growth startups. Um, what I really liked about working with her is her commitment to this top talent attraction, um, building out a really strong recruiting organization. Really thrilled to have you meet her and also to our listeners. Andrea, hello and welcome.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
I have heard such great things about you, so thank you for joining. And without further ado, yeah, let's dive in. So, we've been burning to ask you this question. So, when you think about hiring, think about a top talent hiring bar. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. Um, I've been in the business a long time. I think it's over 25 years now. And like Zen said, I have been at huge multinationals, small startups, everything in between. And quite honestly, I feel like what top talent means has really evolved over the time that I have been part of recruiting. And so, let's take out kind of the job specific things, right? You need to hire someone with a law degree to be a lawyer or whatever. But I really think as we look at what top talent means in an environment like today and what the market kind of dictates, there's a lot going on, right? It's the pace of change is enormous. There's a focus on cost and efficiency. Of course, we can't go a podcast without talking about the impact of AI on what everybody is doing, but it is a realistic thing. And so, as I think about top talent, it's about some of those things that are a little bit less tangible, a little bit harder than what you can just read on a resume and say, oh, this person's going to be great in the job. I'm talking about things like their ability to adapt, whether or not they come with a growth mindset, whether they are natural problem solvers, how they communicate and connect with people. Are they resourceful? Do they work smarter, not harder? So, those, and then things like, do they bring integrity to what they do? Are they good humans in the way that they operate? So I think that those are to me those things that really make the difference between somebody who's going to be an amazing asset for your organization versus somebody who's just going to be there to get a job done.
Okay, I absolutely love what you just said. And like you said, these are things that you can't find on a resume, right? You can't search for these things. So how? What's your take on that, right? Like how are you uncovering this during the interview process? What are you asking? What are you looking for? Yeah, we'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean there are a couple of things that on a resume can be a little bit of an indicator, right? A signal, if you will. So I spent a lot of years doing entry level and internship hiring, and most people find that super challenging because they're like, this person doesn't have any work experience. But you know what they do have? Lots of classroom projects. I always looked for people who had jobs, either during the summer or during the school year, showing their ability to balance leadership with uh, a place where you have to be on time and do what you're expected to do and keep up your good grades. So some of
Mm.
those things can kind of be indicators, right? That they have a little bit more going on, that they have uh, a little bit more, what's the word I'm going to look for? I hate to use the word grit, but hey, I'll use it. There are some people who float through and get the good grades and get the jobs and haven't had to work real hard for it. So some of those things can kind of be indicators. I think when it gets down to in the interview process, I've got a whole set of questions that I just keep in my back pocket that I really love. Again, thinking back to some of those things that I talked about. One of my favorite questions is, what is a work accomplishment that you're most proud of? And again, well, let me even back up a little bit and say there's volunteer experiences, there is leadership to be found in things outside of your traditional clubs and organizations. There, even as a working person, right? Somebody who sits on a board of directors or who helps with a volunteer organization, that's going to bring a whole different set of skills than it might otherwise for somebody who's just kind of doing their 9 to 5 job.
Mm.
So then back to what I was saying, right? Tell me about something professionally or in part of your volunteer organization or your leadership that you're most proud of. leaving that question kind of open-ended, I feel like I get to learn a lot about the character of the person, what it is that they value. If you ask me that question, it's probably going to be about something I did operationally, because that is, I think, what I enjoy. I think it's something that I am very good at. And so by hearing that example, you're going to be like, oh, okay, this is the thing that Andrea kind of naturally evolves to, and what she finds is valuable about what she brings to the table. Then you can get into other specific questions like, tell me about a time you've had to do something that you've never done before. How did you get started? What did you do? Were they Googling? Were they doing YouTube? Were they talking to people that had done it before? And it could be whether it's learning a new AI something or how to use Power BI, or whether it's learning to rock climb, right? It's a similar set of thought processes and skills that you go through. Talking about your biggest mistake, your resilience. How did you bounce back? What did you learn? Did you apply that learning to what you did in the future? Um, Overcoming challenges. That one's kind of a normal one. I think kind of another big favorite one is, tell me about a time you had to solve a problem at work with something that you think was innovative or unique. How did you even identify what a problem was? How did you think through your solutions? So giving you a little bit more insights into what what extra value they can bring to the table.
Yeah, I love your concept of starting a bit vague, not leading them, but then the digging and digging and digging and asking those follow-ups. And I'm sure you really get to understand, did they inherit something that was already successful? Were they the one just who had to kind of fight for it? And just that
Yeah,
journey that they've been on. So I
yeah.
absolutely love that. Yeah.
And I think something you mentioned too, Summer, um, particularly with the more junior kind of Gen Z millennial
Mm-hmm.
type people that are coming into the workforce now, this is a generation who had helicopter parents. I will say I am a proud Gen Xer, like throw me to the wolves. I've got, a key and my friends and I are riding all over the place. No one knows where we are, what we're doing.
Mhm.
A lot of executive function came out of that. And I know everybody's probably read all of the same articles that I have, but where I see it coming out in the workforce is the more entry level folks, you ask them to do something and they're waiting for a list of like, okay, well, what steps do I need to do it? And I'm like, well, you need to go figure that out. Like, my job here as a leader is to empower you with the task, the guardrails, the support that you need, but I'm not going to hold your hand through this whole thing. And so I think that's where some of these questions too, and looking at things like the type of work experience. If people have worked in restaurants and customer service and things where people have been really awful to them, but they've bounced back, like those are going to be people who bring a little something different than those who, you know, have gone to the perfect prep school and attended all of the right universities and have done all of the, honor societies and clubs and all that sort of stuff. They're both valuable in different ways, but I will probably opt for the person who's had to work a little harder for it, because it means more to them, and they bring that different set of adaptability and skill set.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm smiling so much because I'm reflecting on all of my jobs before the resume. No, that's awesome. And yeah, you learn so much. And how often do people even ask? So I think it's such a great lens to see how someone's just resilience and ability to problem solve is shaped early on versus like, okay, I'll do it. What's step one? So yeah, that's really
Mm.
great. Okay. So there are a lot of generally accepted hiring truths out there about finding the right fit, right? So I'd love to know
Mhm.
from you, are there any that kind of stand out that need to go? What do you
Oh
think?
yeah. Oh
Yeah?
yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
Um, I would say the first one is that there's one kind of perfect path to
Mm.
what success looks like and what you need to
Mhm.
hire. Um, it's not the case. I've kind of alluded to it before, right? People who are moms are exceptional at multitasking and balancing and managing schedules and calendars. Maybe they have been out of the workforce for a period of time, but they're going to make, a hell of somebody who's a field marketing executive or an EA or many other roles that involve tons of details, right? So not overlooking some of those experiences that just don't fit into your little traditional box. And I also don't think that success is only occurs in small pockets, right? So just because you didn't go to the Ivy League schools doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities for you to be smart, that you're not a smart person and you don't excel. And I'm very tired of people only looking in a tiny little pond and all fighting over the same talent when there is so much else out there. And I'm hoping that in many ways AI will help to kind of level that playing field, right? And so it becomes about how you operate instead of what you operate. How do you think? How do you use these tools? How are you able to connect with other people to achieve a goal? And you've got now a whole new set of resources that can code for you or can, write a technical manual or whatever it is, but how, those different skill sets I think are going to be even more important as we kind of see whatever this next version of work world looks like.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I often think a lot about screening in versus screening out. And it's probably with AI and everything, it's probably becoming even more important that we don't just stick in words, the royal we, whoever's adding words, and just only looking for certain things or quickly disqualifying certain things because the things that you're talking about, at least at this point, aren't keyword searchable. Maybe there
Yeah.
are ways to indicate, or maybe the tech will get there, right? But I just love that you're talking to people in this way and just hiring the whole person, right? Just versus looking at just little indicators here and there that might mean something, but might not. So yeah, it's a really great way of looking at it. So yeah, thank you for joining us today. Zen, anything else you wanted to ask, Andrew, or anything you wanted to add?
Oh my gosh, so many. You're just speaking, like literally taking the words out of my mouth as you're sharing your experience. What I think is really ironic in a lot of ways is when we work with fast-growing organizations, whether they're startup or Fortune 500s or more, is this concept of like I want to hire someone who's growth mindset, like you said, resilient, can get stuff done, can figure it out, can all those things. But yet we resort to this idea of looking for hard skills, which is the one thing that we actually can affect and change. And so I love what you said about just thinking about what challenges that person had and headwinds. And I think we scratch the surface usually in the interview process by asking one question. What was the hardest thing you've done? But we didn't really look at the person as a whole. And if we implement that into our interview process, I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised that the hard skills are the things that actually should step aside to the core of who the person is. And as we evolve our interviews and employ AI tools, I'd say that's where we're going to find success because we're in a whole new uncharted world as we venture further and further into this technology. And so we're not going to have a lot of hard coded skills that can go in. We're going to need people who can figure it out and who are resilient, who can fail and stand up again and dust themselves off and figure out the next path forward. So I love that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. There are so many great takeaways here. And until next time. So, Zen, I will see you then.
See you soon.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.